radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 141, recorded on Saturday, February 1st from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And we're back!
Yay, or boo.
Boo,
Yeah.
yay. We'll get to that. And on today's episode, we recap the major events that we missed during our break and discuss the first weeks of, okay, well, you have Armageddon here.
It's crossed
out. It's actually the Trump administration's second freaking term. But first, we want to talk about some changes we're going to make to the show. We did a lot of thinking and discussing after our last episode, and I think this episode kind of proved it to us. We don't really want to be a super current events headlines show anymore.
Yeah, it's too difficult. Everything is aged by the time we even get it uploaded, and there are much better
Things
avenues
to talk about.
and much better outlets for that sort of thing.
Right.
Anyway, we're not journalists.
Well, and on top of that, again, like we'll get to later in this episode, we didn't want to make the next 4 years, if we continue, obviously, for the next 4 years, if we make it that far, just be like, hey, did you see the stupid thing Trump did this week?
Yeah.
I can't do it. In the first week, I was so drained when preparing this episode. I was exhausted. This was not a fun episode for me to prepare. We would much rather, when we enjoyed doing stuff, last year, we liked the deep dives, the nerding out, really finding some topics that you may not hear about often on the news and just go all out on them. I think that's something that we've enjoyed in the past. We want to keep going moving forward. So from now on, outside of today's episode, we're not going to do headlines anymore. We're just going to do a simple topic each week and just go crazy and deep dive on it as well. We're also going to be doing bi-weekly episodes as opposed to every week, and that will give us
Bi-weekly being every other week.
Correct.
Not twice a week. It
Correct.
can mean either. So.
I know, which is so stupid.
Yeah, English.
That'll give us more time to properly prepare for these episodes and give you better information overall.
So, disregarding everything we just said,
We wanted to recap at least some things that we had while we were gone. And boy, all right, buckle in. Here we go.
So to begin the list of major headlines that occurred while we were gone, we'll start off with Luigi Mangione, America's Most Wanted.
This feels ages ago already, man.
Right.
Like, I almost thought like we covered this in our last episode because it's been that long to me.
Yep, we just missed it. I think it was like maybe 2 weeks after.
Right. So we're not going to really recap because you probably know what's going on with this already, but this is the guy who shot and killed the United Healthcare CEO and led police on a massive manhunt.
I mean, yeah.
And got ratted out at McDonald's.
Yeah. So it really goes to show who matters in this country. We have this all media attention, full force of the largest police force in America, larger budget than most militaries throughout the world, putting all of their efforts, all of their focus into finding someone who murdered a CEO of $1 billion company.
Yes.
Now, if that's you or me that gets shot in the street, none of that happens.
Correct.
And that really goes to show what the police is for in America. They are protecting property owners. And Brian Thompson was one of the largest, biggest figures in the healthcare industry, multi-billion dollar industry, even though it's a giant scam, which is why no one gave a shit that he was shot and killed in the middle of Manhattan.
He was one of the good ones.
Sure he was.
That's why I heard a lot, is that he was one of the good ones.
And if you really were like, oh, we really care about people and death and suffering, and that's why I'm glad he fucking got shot.
So, okay.
Fuck that guy and fuck everyone who's in management of any healthcare company.
Right. So here's my take on this, and we can go
in the United States.
Yeah, right.
To be fair, the only first world country that has this terrible system that's designed to create suffering and death and then profit off of it.
Yes. And that's where I got really upset, where obviously, and I'm not going to speak for my co-host, Jason, but obviously for me, I don't want just random vigilantes going out and killing people.
It doesn't solve anything.
It doesn't solve anything. Obviously, like we can talk about, it created a discussion. Sure, I guess, but I don't want random people just going out and just shooting people. That's not good. you're throwing your own lives away in the meantime. You're not martyrs. You're just going to be forgotten about and jailed forever and suffer. We need to do something that's better and more systemic to fix this problem. With that said, I don't feel sympathy for the guy who died. I don't. And obviously, I don't want anyone getting murdered. But when we're talking about how, and I've had Democrats, Jason, tons of Democrats telling me about how I should still feel bad, for him and his family. And I'm like, cool, sounds great. What about all the families he and his company freaking scammed, denied healthcare coverage, and have been dying and suffering under his watch? And then from Democrats, Jason, I'd have them say, well, what could he have done? What could he have possibly done? He has this board of shareholders that he has to answer to. I'm like, oh no, the poor $1 billion CEO who runs one of the biggest healthcare insurance companies in the entire country is just so helpless. He's a victim of his own success, Jason. And
somebody's got to be the CEO.
Right. I'm like, and this poor selfless man just happened to become one of the wealthiest people in the entire freaking country off the death and suffering of this broken system like you talked about. No, I'm not going to feel sympathy for that. So I think that's something that makes me really upset about this whole very disingenuous conversation.
Yeah, I don't care. And again, I think the response to the murder is really telling about how much effort and money was poured into finding this person, but the average citizen gets murdered.
And no one cares.
Yeah, nothing happens.
Well, and let's also not forget, too, a lot of those people who were all about the memes and, were very sympathetic to what I just said as well. Those same people are also huge Trump supporters and Republicans who put these people in office that made the system the way it is. I forgot I was angry about this.
Well, and they support the death penalty.
Right.
There is no justice for people like Brian Thompson. We can say, yes, he's caused the death and suffering and misery of tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Nothing will ever happen. Even if literally it is found out that, yes, United Healthcare purposefully let people die when they should have been covering their treatments and they didn't. Say that does happen.
Well, and not just say that, not to say that happens, but also call it murder.
Right. However you want to say it, say that comes out.
Yes.
That they purposefully denied coverage and let people die, even though they knew that they were supposed to cover. Say there's some magic memo out there that comes to light. There will never be any criminal responsibility.
No.
They'll get fined a few $1 million. Meanwhile, they're making billions.
Yep.
And that'll be the end of it.
Because it's never murder.
There is never justice for these people. So maybe the only justice that is there is, again, by all accounts, a right-wing tech bro who had back surgery and had bad outcomes and was suffering with that and takes justice into his own hands. Maybe that's the only justice there is. And that sucks that that's the case. Again, as you said, I don't want random vigilante justice because who's to say, in that system, what is worthy of murdering someone?
Correct.
But the way we've built our system, that's where it's going to lead people. And you see where the real justice is aimed. It's aimed at the person that does harm to the $1 billion corporation, not the $1 billion corporation that does harm to tens and hundreds of thousands of people. And that's the real problem.
Yep, 100%. Moving on.
Let's move on to, unfortunately, the Trump administration and Trump's cabinet picks. We're not going to give a long,
don't have time.
Right. We're just going to quickly go over them and what their current status is. So far, 8 cabinet members have been confirmed. For Interior Secretary, the former governor of North Dakota and Muppet.
And supposed non-Trumper.
And billionaire.
Yep.
Doug Burgum. For EPA Administrator, which, all that is going to be is let's destroy the environment.
Correct.
Lee Zeldin. Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, Homeland Security Secretary, and enemy to pets everywhere, Kristi Noem. Defense Secretary, very controversial pick, barely passed, was a 50-50 tie in the Senate, had to be decided by J.D. Vance. Surprisingly, he voted with the Trump pick. Former Fox News
weekend host.
Yeah, weekend host, alcoholic, and
hey, he said he wouldn't drink anymore if he got the job.
Yeah, and a domestic abuser, Pete Hegseth.
Just a perfect example of how low we've come.
Whose own mother wrote a scathing letter accusing her son of abusing his, at the time, wife.
Yeah, I think from now, I mean, anytime I hear anybody talk about meritocracy anymore, I'm just going to shove this like list in their face and like, let's talk about these people, please. Because my God, Jesus Christ.
We have CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Secretary of State Little Marco Rubio, unanimous, his vote, 99-0. And then the yet-to-be-confirmed appointees, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Education Secretary Linda McMahon, wife of Vince McMahon, also convicted abuser. And Linda McMahon has also been named in lawsuits where the WWF, WWE, whatever the hell you want to call it, covered up the rape and assault of multiple ring boys. So, you know, it's a good start. Energy Secretary Chris Wright. This one I'm not sure is going to go through. We'll see. I hope not.
I think it will. If Pete Hegseth gets through, man.
Well, okay, so and this is Health and Human Services Secretary and puppeted by worms in his brain, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Not only is he not qualified for this position, he has everything you wouldn't want. Every qualification he has is exactly against him being Health and Human Services Secretary. We have a whole episode on him about how he's a dangerous idiot, and it is specifically in the topic of health.
Yep. His hearing was wild. I don't know if you saw any clips from his hearing.
Just the couple where, you know, they're literally just repeating the stuff that he said, and he's like, well, I don't know if I said that. Like, yeah, no, we have recording, like, hours and hours and hours across, like, 3 decades of you being an anti-vax conspiracy weirdo and really against every facet of modern medicine. This is, I can't think, maybe Alex Jones, Joseph Mercola, and Oprah would be like the only 3 people I could think of that I would want less as Health and Human Services Secretary on the planet than Robert Kennedy Jr. So I really hope that one doesn't go through. That one would be a nightmare for the country. I mean, vaccines would probably be banned. It would be just a nightmare. And of course, the one black guy.
I would say, look, they found a black guy.
Again, you know, last time it was Ben Carson, the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Scott Turner. Trump just sees black guy and is like, urban. Yeah, there you go. You get the HUD secretary. Attorney General, this is another one. Obviously was supposed to be Matt Gaetz. That didn't go so well. We're not going to talk about that in this. We don't have the time, but you can look it up. They did release the he raped and trafficked minors while he was in the House of Representatives. It's that's what happened, but instead is now going to be Trump's former attorney, Pam Bondi. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer, Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, who claimed that she would not take a position in Trump's administration and she wouldn't endorse him because she didn't need anything from him, has instead endorsed Donald Trump, kissed the ring as she said she wouldn't do, and now taken a cabinet position. Great.
Yeah, now she's also our National Intelligence Secretary, where we have a literal Russian puppet.
Yeah, she...
in charge of our own national intelligence.
Yeah, she could not answer questions about her involvement with, I think it was Syrian intelligence and... another hearing that did not go well, but it's not going to matter. Another controversial pick, director of the Office of Management and Budget, is actually returning to this office. He was there during the first Trump term. Russell Vought, who also was one of the main authors of Project 2025, which of course Trump has never heard of, but he is implementing everything that was in it.
Yep.
SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler.
You know, the one
another
that
crazy
literally used her position in the Senate to get millions of dollars illegally through undisclosed hearings. So that's great.
We have UN Ambassador Elise Stefanik, another
kiss the ring.
Yeah, and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. So that is currently we have 14 people awaiting confirmation and 8 who have passed.
I mean, man, I don't know. What are we supposed to hold out hope for? We already saw what's kind of happening.
The meteor?
Yeah, I mean, that could be nice. If it was like a selective meteor, though.
A very red meteor.
A vigilante meteor. Okay. Going forward brings us to Inauguration Day, full of very weird jingoistic patriotic crap, a seemingly extremely drunk or coked out of his mind Billy Ray Cyrus jumping on stage by himself, and Elon Musk giving what many thought has been a Nazi salute.
He has autism, Joe.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know, if you're autistic,
all my autistic friends are Nazis.
Yeah, you just see Kyle. It's like Tourette's, but fascist. So personally, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it out there. If you haven't, it's easy to find. Twice too, like once at the crowd, once at like the backdrop.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, he did this behind a podium with the official seal of the President of the United States on it.
Yep.
Giving very much a Nazi Sieg Heil. Like, that's what it was. You can argue that's not what he intended, but that's what it was.
Well, and that's what makes me so angry about this conversation. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I do not care about this controversy one bit, because we've had controversies like this for decades. I don't care. But you can't argue that it's all fake news. I think you saw our friend saying that it's all fake news propaganda. And I'm like,
North Korean
propaganda.
And I would not call him my friend.
Former acquaintance, work buddy. It happened, man. At least acknowledge that it happened.
Author of the 1-star review on our podcast, too, by the way. So yeah, I really don't mind that. But yes, it happened. And I mean, him and everyone else trying to like show pictures of
like Democrats
right
at weird angles and
right. And like snapshots.
Yeah.
Of like, you know, in the process of waving or making some other type of hand like gesture, like showing something, like having some other reason to do it, not just snapping their hand out in a salute. It's not, one, like, give me a break. It's not the same thing. But two, as you said, I don't give a shit. I don't care that he went up there behind the seal of the President of the United States and gave the Sieg Heil to the crowd in an awkward moment where he didn't know what to do with his hands. I don't care. Like, that's not what's important to me. What's important to me when it comes to someone like Elon Musk is what he's done.
Yep.
What he has actually said, what he has promoted. He is one of the richest men on the planet. He's the owner of a massive social media company, probably still the most popular social media app on the planet. And he's someone who has used his insane wealth to buy his way into the government. He's not been elected by anyone, but he is now in charge of a government agency. That, to me, is a bigger issue. And if you want to point to why I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt on his neurodivergent hand gesture, he has done things like unbanned neo-Nazis and white nationalist accounts such as Nick Fuentes, who celebrated Elon's hand gesture and saying like, yep, that's a pro-Hitler Sieg Heil hand salute. Him and other Nazis and white nationalists around the world
have all been saying.
Yes, and positively responded to that moment.
And again, why I don't care about whether or not he was trolling or being stupid. The Nazis saw it and they liked it.
And it's an embarrassment to our country.
Yes. And that's where I lose my freaking mind about this. I'm like, oh, but it was just a Roman salute, man. No!
That is like literally, because that hand gesture was started by the Italians, by the Mussolini fascists, right? They're the ones that are of Roman descent, and Rome is in Italy. They're the ones that started it, and it was picked up by Hitler and the Nazi Party. So yes, it is a Roman salute. That's the point. And Elon frequently interacts with and reposts anti-Semitic and Great Replacement videos and posts from people. We've had multiple examples of that in previous episodes. He is a white nationalist. I don't care if you want to call him a neo-Nazi, whatever. He is a supporter of the Great Replacement theory and someone who believes that white European culture is somehow superior to other cultures around the world. And I put two responses in here that I think we've heard a lot. Elon likes immigrants. He is one, and he even opposed getting rid of work visas, right? When Vivek Ramaswamy,
the whole H-1B thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why he supports those work visas is because he uses them.
Because they work for him! For cheap!
Right. They have to, right? And if you lose your job, you get kicked out of the country. So you're going to put up with more that your American workers wouldn't, which is exactly what happened when Elon took over Twitter. He basically made the conditions terrible. All of the regular workers left, and all that he had left were the H-1 visa holders who couldn't leave because they would lose their citizenship. So yes, of course he's a proponent for that. He abuses that system for profit. That's why he's one of the richest people in the world. And as Elon himself has said, he can't be a Nazi because he supports Israel's war in Gaza and is pro-Zionist. One, that doesn't make any sense at all because white nationalists are generally in favor of ethno-states. They want everyone to be cordoned off in their own, like, America's just for white people and Israel's just for the Jews, and everybody has their own area and they don't mix. That's what white nationalists generally like. They're not all for completely eradicating other races. They know, one, that's not very popular, and two, it's not likely.
No, it's literally driving people you don't like out of the country.
Right, and creating an ethno-state.
Yes.
And that is what Israel is. So of course they'd be in favor of it. And two, Israel is not fighting like a white European people. They're killing and oppressing Palestinian Arabs. You think neo-Nazis and white supremacists are against that happening? So yes, you can very much be a neo-Nazi, a white supremacist, and also be in favor of the war in Gaza. So those are two ridiculous counters to this argument. But yes, based on not just the stupid hand salute, but what he has done and what he has promoted with the immense wealth and power that he has, I do not give Elon Musk the benefit of the doubt, and I do believe that he is a white supremacist. I mean, he's South African, for fuck's sake.
But Jason, when are we going to talk about the real issue of Elon Musk cheating at Path of Exile 2?
Yeah, and he's a fake gamer, which is the real crime.
He's been getting more scrutiny from these idiotic plebes who like obsess over him over the video game thing than the Sieg Heil thing, for God's sakes. All right, fine. So that brings us to the first couple of days of Trump's presidency, where we saw a slew of executive orders covering a very wide range of things. We're going to try to cover a good handful of them. Again, there's just too much. We can't go in depth on all these, but we're just going to run through them and be pissed about them because that's how our week has been going. Let's start with the over 1,500 pardons of January 6th insurrectionists, including people like Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers.
Which we have videos. I think we have one specifically about the militias. Is one of our most popular episodes where we talk more in depth about those groups and these people, if you want to listen to that.
He said he was going to do this. Mm-hmm. He campaigned on this, and people either didn't care or they wanted this to happen.
Well, they don't believe, they think just like Trump does, that these are just patriots. These are patriots just trying to do their duty as Americans, and they were unjustly prosecuted by the deep state.
But what I think makes me really angry are the idiots who either A, feigned surprise at this whole thing, or B, were legitimately surprised and thought Donald Trump wouldn't actually do such a thing like this. And I have, as an example of that, a statement from the Fraternal Order of Police and the International Association of Chiefs of Police, two very conservative police unions in this country that have given tons of money to Republicans, including Donald Trump. In a joint statement, they said, quote, "The IACP and the FOP are deeply discouraged by the recent pardons and commutations granted by both the Biden and Trump administrations." Can't even just make it about the 1,500 pardons, but it's fine.
Right. Tax evasion is the same as beating Capitol police officers on the steps of the Capitol.
To individuals convicted of killing or assaulting law enforcement officers, the IACP and FOP firmly believe that those convicted of such crimes should serve their full sentences. They also said, when perpetrators of crimes, especially serious crimes, are not held fully accountable, it sends a dangerous message that the consequences for attacking law enforcement are not severe, potentially emboldening others to commit similar acts of violence.
Watch out for Hunter.
This makes me want to freaking scream. I'm so angry.
Well, one of the pardoned January 6th defendants has already been murdered in a shootout with police. Another has been arrested for child pornography, and a third, who was also accused of child pornography, will likely have his case thrown out because they found it when when they went to arrest him for the January 6th crimes, they took his computer, which then had evidence of him abusing and recording minors, as you would expect. Now that evidence is in dispute because they only have it because they were serving the warrant on the January 6th conviction, which he's been pardoned for. So yay, law and order party.
Yeah, again,
letting actual sexual predators back out on the street.
Yep, and getting a nice little hand wave and, a stern letter from our police associations.
Yeah, while they continue to endorse and support Republican candidates.
Yep.
And Donald Trump.
I don't ever want to hear any person ever talk about law and order in the Republican Party ever again. That brings us to the very newsworthy pausing of federal aid. Last Tuesday, Trump's Office of Management and Budget sent out a memo declaring that all federal funding needed to be paused so Trump's admin can assess whether the money was being used for woke stuff. Quote from the memo: federal agencies must temporarily pause all activities related to obligation or disbursement of all federal financial assistance and other relevant agency activities that may be implicated by the executive orders, including, but not limited to, financial assistance for foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal.
The Green New Deal, which never even was brought up in committee.
No. And hasn't been talked about in years.
But somehow it passed and is law, and now we need to rescind it.
It's one thing to campaign on bullshit. It's another to make your policies on things that just don't even exist either. It's just
to govern on it.
Yeah. This caused, obviously, a nationwide confusion and panic as universities could no longer process student aid applications, Medicare and Medicaid couldn't be processed, and housing and other essential organizations which relied on federal funding needed to find out if they had to cease any services or even exist and have jobs anymore. Fun little personal anecdote. My mom is a director at a local university here, and she called me trying to figure out what was going on and started freaking out when she realized that none of her students could apply for federal aid because this is the time they're doing that. So not great.
Yeah, luckily, and I don't know what, maybe because they were getting calls from every single
person in the world
and agency, they did suspend this order.
Well, first they said the memo wasn't going to be in order anymore, but the executive orders that said the pause was going to happen were still going forward, which caused more confusion. And then I think they rescinded the whole thing because now no one has any clue what's going on.
Yeah, and they're obviously going to rewrite it and
just do it again,
reissue it. So it's still, you're in a kind of a state of limbo at this point, just waiting to see what happens.
But it's been a week, Jason. It's been a freaking week, and the Trump administration has already sent the entire country into chaos.
Yeah, it's what the country voted for.
It's so hard to stay angry when you say that to me because I'm like, yeah, I know.
I mean, we've said it how many times? Elections have consequences. Here it is. 30% of the country that didn't vote. Go fuck yourself.
Well, and the others that voted for Trump.
Also, go fuck yourself harder.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Trump also introduced executive orders trying to ban CRT and DEI out of K through 12 schools. So what's in it? Well, he wants to eliminate federal funding for any K through 12 schools that supposedly incorporate DEI or gender ideology. They want to eliminate federal funding or support for illegal and discriminatory treatment and indoctrination in K through 12 schools, including based on gender ideology, and now what they're reterming, I guess, DEI as discriminatory equity ideology. Aren't they clever?
Gay.
You could. I was going to say you couldn't see it, but Jason had a very, very big eye roll. And I'm going to just go through this very quick. The EO also states that discriminatory equity ideology, or DEI, means an ideology that treats individuals as members of preferred or disfavored groups rather than as individuals and minimizes agency, merit, and capability in favor of immoral generalizations, including that members of one race, color, sex, or national origin are morally or inherently superior to members of another race, color, sex, or national origin. An individual, by virtue of the individual's race, color, sex, or national origin, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously.
I think you'll kind of get. I mean,
I'm not going through all this, but
it just goes on and on and
correct.
on.
This is the exact same straw man that we saw during the CRT debates years ago, where they're just saying people are just supposedly saying that white people are just all racist because the color of their skin makes them like a perpetrator of something, therefore they must be put in jail. It's the dumbest straw man of this I've ever seen.
If you want want to know kind of what they're targeting, just listen to our episode on CRT.
Correct.
It's the same thing. I did include in here, because this is moving through all facets of the federal government, not just education. I included Ken Klippenstein was leaked a memo that was distributed by the Defense Intelligence Agency showing this executive order basically going into effect and what that effect is. So I just want to read some of that.
Yeah, go ahead. What is this blue sky liberal garbage you got here?
Yeah, so this is from Blue Sky, my new social media app of choice. You can follow us. I don't know, look for, what is our thing? Think Pro Pod.
Yeah.
On there. So this is a memo dated January 28th. 2025, to Defense Intelligence Agency workforce, subject pause on special emphasis programs and related activities and events. And it says agency is working to basically be in compliance with the executive order, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing and initial recessions of harmful executive orders and actions.
Oh my God. It's in italics, so they're serious.
Yeah. So because of that, it says the Defense Intelligence Agency will pause all activities and events related to agency special emphasis programs effective immediately and until further notice. Additionally, special observations hosted throughout the year by the command element, directorates, and special offices are also paused. These include observances related to the following: Martin Luther King Jr. birthday, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Holocaust Day, Days of Remembrance, Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Pride Month, Juneteenth Day, Women's Equality Day, National Hispanic Heritage Month, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, National American Indian Heritage Month. The Defense Intelligence Agency will also pause agency resource groups, affinity groups, and employee networking groups effective immediately and until further notice. So this is what DEI means. Anything that has anything to do with
non-white men.
Right. Any racial group, women, it's all woke bullshit.
Sorry. I can't even say non-white men because they have Holocaust remembrance on here that's also being stopped.
And pride. So, anything that's not straight white men.
Non-Jewish.
Right. We're excluding Jews from being white. If we had, I don't think Columbus Day is probably still, it's not on this list. So I guess Italians are still white. But yeah, that's what it is. It's not, again, it is not these harmful, racist programs. It's literally any acknowledgement.
It's literally MLK Day.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Any teaching that anyone did anything or should have any acknowledgement other than straight white men. That's all woke bullshit, and we won't have it, not in Trump's America. So that is an official government memo. It's not us making up anything. That is literally what's being sent out to government agencies to tell them to stop their activities or any sort of acknowledgement of anything that is not straight white men.
But we're not done yet with this one executive order. It also reestablishes the 1776 Commission. Remember that, Jason?
Yeah, we do have, again, an entire episode on that.
According to the EO, it will facilitate the development and implementation of a presidential 1776 award to recognize student acknowledgement of the American founding, including knowledge about the founders, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitutional Convention, and the great soldiers and battles of the American Revolutionary War.
It doesn't specifically say not Crispus Attucks, but not Crispus Attucks.
It will also coordinate a bi-weekly lecture series regarding the 250th anniversary of American independence that are grounded in patriotic education principles. Hooray! Again, going back to the idea that America's founding was definitely not racist in any way, shape, or form.
It's illegal for you to even say that now.
He also signed an executive order declaring that the U.S. government will only recognize two genders. Quote, agencies will cease pretending that men can be women and women can be men when enforcing laws that protect against sex discrimination. It also has their own definitions for female, which is a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell, and male, a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell.
And of course has been widely
debunked and criticized.
Right, that it does not understand fetal development because we're all female at conception.
Yep.
So under this definition, we are We are all women, so
and we can't even celebrate because the agency took away women's
Women's History Month. And International Women's Day for us.
Nope. Damn it. It also revoked Biden's 2022 rule that allowed people to select X when marking their gender on passports. So a bunch of new people now have to reapply for passports. Hooray. Again, are we great yet as a country? Are we doing it? What the hell else has he done? We're going to rapid fire this. He signed an executive order in an attempt to end gender-affirming care of people under 19 years old. He made the U.S. leave the Paris Climate Accords again, made the U.S. leave the World Health Organization because, disease is awesome.
Yep. We haven't, there's not going to be any global pandemics.
No, not anymore. We're good now.
We're safe.
We did it once. We're fine. He renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America and Mount Denali in Alaska to Mount McKinley. He got rid of the EV targets Biden put in place to make sure we had goals set for 2030. Those don't exist anymore. And something we actually talked about a lot during our Project 2025 episodes. He reclassified tens of thousands of federal jobs on Schedule F, making them easily fireable and replaceable with Trump loyalists.
Yep, again.
The thing he said he was going to do.
Yep, but he's never heard of Project 2025, even though that's probably the most foundational principle to Project 2025, is replacing all of the federal workers with Trump sycophants that they have been handpicking over the last 2 years, getting people to apply. And also, they recently offered buyouts to thousands of federal workers as well. Even though it's not really a buyout, they just lose all their protections. They still have to work. But this is well on their way to doing exactly what Project 2025 outlines. Destroying the federal workforce and any semblance of expertise in the federal government. And the number one qualification being, how conservative are you?
That brings us now to the horrific helicopter and plane crash in D.C.
There was another plane crash last night in Philadelphia.
There was. Hooray.
Which we don't have, even on this one that we're going to talk about in D.C., we really don't have all of the information yet. So it does not make much sense to speculate on what happened, which, of course...
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Would then bring us to what happened with President Trump.
I'm sorry, what you don't want us to speculate?
It would not be responsible...
Are you sure?
...for us to speculate on what happened in this crash because we don't have all of the details yet.
So it'd be really bad if, the president of the United States would just go off and start ranting off the cuff.
Right. The person that you want to be a responsible adult would be the president. We are not responsible adults, but we have more tact. And
God, name a million things we have Trump.
Right. But that we are going to be more responsible than the president, which, that doesn't surprise me.
So I have 3 clips for you. I need you to understand how long it took me just to gather these clip montages for you. Each clip is a montage of several different clips because the guy speaks absolutely incoherently. And it made me so angry, Jason, when I was trying to put this together because, man, anything that conservatives and Republicans tried to say about how incoherent Biden was is not even remotely close to how ridiculous this is. Just go watch. It's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes. It'll make you feel like you're watching an 8-hour marathon because of how stupid he is. But let's watch how he goes from talking about the disaster, trying to be a, responsible person, and immediately going into drunk Uncle Don mode.
In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level.
So he knows that it's just his opinion.
Yes.
But he still states it as fact.
Again, it's the drunk uncle thing. Like, well, hey, I don't actually know much about it, but let me tell you where I'm coming from.
But let me tell you what I think happened, and I'm just going to state as like complete and utter truth.
So what is Trump specifically upset about? Obviously, we heard about the Obama and Biden regulations. They were so bad that they could just become air traffic controllers whenever they want, so it doesn't really matter.
And planes should have just been falling out of the sky.
Left and right, you know.
During their administrations. Instead, less than 2 weeks into the Trump administration, we have 2 plane crashes.
Yep. Well, after he goes on that little rant about Obama and Biden, he then just literally picks up a stack of papers and just says, here are some articles that talk about the FAA, and he just reacts to it live on air.
I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. Another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway.
What the fuck was he talking about at the end? What? I think his
Jason,
brain just
I
melted.
need you to understand how hard it was to edit this down because he would do that so often.
Was he trying to talk about immigration?
I don't know, man. But they're flooding in. They're all flooding the country. They're coming into a little dot.
And like, did he just commit like an American with Disabilities Act violation multiple times?
Yeah. I mean, in a normal world, yeah. Hey, we don't want dwarves in our agency. Now,
look, if someone is brain damaged, as Donald Trump can be the president, it's everything is fair game from then on. You talk about people with severe mental deficiencies and disabilities and psychological problems. What the fuck, man? We let you be the president. So who are you to say anything about anyone else?
Oh, my God. And
do you trust that whatever articles he was citing say what he said they say?
No, and
no,
they don't.
There's no way in hell.
Now, I want you to listen to Trump's answers when asked for any evidence of, any of this actually happening.
On DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think were the names of the people. You mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They
to
are
hear you
a
blaming
group of
DEI
people that have
policies?
lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question.
But are you
I'm
blaming-
surprised coming from you.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers.
He's got common sense, Jason.
And when you got computers and they're very high-end computers and it's computer work,
And
what a fucking idiot.
Yes, and I need to just clarify again. Just if you have the mental and emotional bandwidth, just go watch the 30-minute press conference, because that's exactly what that one reporter was saying. He starts off by talking about how air traffic controllers were the ones that were responsible because of all these horrible low regulations. We just talked about, and
Right.
we showed you those clips. Then he shifts gears and starts blaming the helicopter pilot. And I cut out the thing where he literally says, well, I don't know what the helicopter pilot was even doing up there. I have a lot of helicopters, and I know you can just turn them go up or down or left or right. You can do whatever you want in a helicopter. I cut that out, but it's really stupid,
Yeah.
right?
And then he calls someone else dumb, the reporter asking the
Yes.
question of, why are you saying this is because of Democrats and DEI and we don't even have the facts yet? Isn't that irresponsible? That's a very dumb question.
Which is even dumber than that, Jason, because earlier in the press conference, he actually talks about, well, so many times when this happens, there's like a press conference like this, and they always just say, oh, we're under investigation. We're not going to do that. We're just going to shoot from the hip, all right? And then literally goes, well, we're still investigating.
Right,
it.
when he doesn't have the answer.
Right, like, that's the point, you idiot.
Right, because we don't know what happened.
So keep that all in mind. Also keep in mind, I also cut out in that last clip. He continued on with that last question. I wanted to share it, but it went on for another like 5 minutes of him talking about how he was upset about the computer system and how he wanted to like just completely redo the computer system for the FAA and air traffic controllers. But he got mad because he lost the last election, and then Biden renovated it instead of redoing it or something, and then picked a bad company to do it with. It was so stupid. I also cut out the other 10 minutes where Sean Duffy, Pete Hegseth, and JD Vance come here and yell out more crap about DEI. Just spouting absolute nonsense the entire time. His first disaster as a president, and he's blaming DEI for the dumbest shit possible.
Well, and as always, blaming Democrats, blaming everyone else. It's always, who are my political enemies? What don't I like? Let me just blame that for everything, take no responsibility for anything, and have no facts to back any of it up.
And because of that, shit like this keeps popping on the internet, where I saw multiple times, I'm not going to say the person's name, but the person themselves had to share it, which then also went viral, that they were pushing around this idea that this individual who is supposedly a trans woman was the pilot of the Black Hawk helicopter, and saying things like, oh, so the pilot was trans? Is it official? I wouldn't be surprised. And kept talking about how we had this trans helicopter pilot, and that's why it was crashing the way it was, because she's just unqualified to do her job. She then had to come out with a statement saying, hey, guess what?
Wait. If men can't become women, Joe... This is still a white man in this scenario.
But they're not psychologically fit, though, remember? He talked a lot about being psychologically fit.
But that was for air traffic controllers. We let anyone in the military.
In the military.
In fact, if you're not psychologically fit, that's better.
But literally, this woman had to come out and say, hey, number one, I'm alive. Number two, I wasn't on the plane or the helicopter.
Oh, of
Don't
course.
spread this crap.
Of course, they're like completely baseless and just want to blame
But they're
a
literally
marginalized group
They're
for
literally
all the
just find,
problems.
yeah, they're literally just hunting and trying to find a trans person to blame this on.
Yes.
Didn't we talk about this all last time, where Trump would always just wipe away things as witch hunts? Every time we talk about the whole freaking thing with Elon Musk, he was like, oh, it's just a witch hunt. The Democrats are just doing their little tricks to get me, blah, blah, blah. It's all a witch hunt, blah, 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 blah. You're doing it. You're freaking doing it right now. And you're putting people's lives in danger because of this stupid bullshit. All right, now I'm done. I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, speaking of blaming everything on a marginalized group with zero evidence, let's talk about the Trump administration's war on immigrants.
If it wasn't sad enough already.
Talking about executive orders, most of the executive orders were targeting immigrants. The first one we're going to talk about is called Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. This executive order essentially reinterprets the 14th Amendment to end birthright citizenship for children born to parents who are not legal permanent residents of the United States. This order has been blocked temporarily by a federal judge out of Washington State who called the order blatantly unconstitutional. We will have to see how the Supreme Court interprets that.
Which you know how that's probably going to go.
Yeah, this would overturn 150 years of established law on who is a citizen and who is not. It's obviously targeting immigrants. I would like to see, if they're going to uphold this, I would like to see it being retroactively enforced.
And just have all the chaos go from there.
Yeah. Can you prove that your great-great-grandfather and grandmother were citizens? Do you have their green card? Can you? No? Then get the fuck out.
Yep.
This also caused a lot of confusion and
Oh, really?
consternation for Native Americans because the law that the case that they're citing with this executive order was actually a 19th century case brought against a Native American stating that they were not included in the 14th Amendment. That the 14th Amendment was specifically tied to slaves, to African Americans, granting them citizenship, but not to anyone else. And it argued that Native Americans, because they have an allegiance to their tribe, that they do not qualify because the wording of the 14th Amendment says that you had to be subject to U.S. jurisdiction. And the argument is that they're not subject to U.S. jurisdiction because they have a loyalty to their tribe.
Ugh.
So there's obviously a lot of worry that this is going to mean that Native Americans are going to lose their citizenship. There is another law that granted Native American citizenship after this, which I think should kind of take precedence, but that's what this is going to do. It really puts into question who is a citizen and who isn't, because we are going against everything, every way that we have interpreted the 14th Amendment for, like I said, 150 years. So, good job, everyone who voted for Donald Trump. We are just destroying the Constitution through executive order. The next executive order, realigning the United States Refugee Admissions Program. This one ends the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program and gives state and local authorities oversight over refugee resettlement and grants the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security the authority to grant entry on a case-by-case basis.
Which means never.
Well, or just who they favor.
Yeah.
If you're rich and white, welcome. If you're not, fuck you. Guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion. This executive order declares an invasion at the southern border and shuts down processing of migrants and asylum seekers in clear violation of both U.S. and international law. I bundled a bunch of the rest of these together to kind of, again, we're running out of time here, but to give you an overview of all of these executive orders that all came out day one, January 20th. You have declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States, protecting the American people against invasion, clarifying the military's role in protecting the territorial integrity of the United States.
Which means sending our military down to the southern border and even into Mexico.
Yes. Securing our borders, protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats, and designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations and specialty designated global terrorists. These orders essentially shut down every legal means of immigration, including the lottery system, authorizes the immediate deportation of immigrants without a trial, possibly to unsafe third-party countries, not even where they're from, reinstates the Remain in Mexico policy, which also puts migrants in danger, directs the construction of more holding facilities for immigrants, and heavily militarizes the southern border. And as well, our new defense secretary and known abuser of both women and alcohol, Pete Hegseth, has proposed using Guantanamo Bay as a concentration camp for immigrants. We also had the Laken-Riley Act, which is the first bill signed into law during Trump's second term. It had bipartisan support in both the House and Senate.
Boo.
46 Democrats voted for it in the House and
Boo.
12 in the Senate. It states that federal officials will be required to detain any migrant arrested or charged, so just charged, with crimes such as burglary, theft, larceny, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, which was added after the fact in this bill because, of course, we got to jerk off the police, or crimes that injure or kill someone. Pretty sure you already have to detain someone who kills somebody, but, fuck it. Further demonize immigrants.
Yep.
It also allows state attorneys general to sue the federal government for harm caused by failures or decisions in immigration enforcement that harm states or people. So essentially, even after the Trump administration, if you have someone in office who does not want to enforce this horrible bill,
So you just have Texas just constantly suing
well,
the US.
every hee-haw state,
Yeah.
basically, just constantly bringing in lawsuits against the federal government. So literally, if, say, you're pissed off at your neighbor, they maybe look a little Hispanic to you, all you have to do is accuse them of theft, and they can be deported. They have to be, in fact, detained by the federal government. I personally am terrified of where this is going. This demonization of, let's be honest, Mexicans and people from Central and South America, that's what this is about. That they are the cause. If you read any of these executive orders, it just constantly talks about the security of the American people and our resources and how we don't have the money, the resources. They're draining all of our resources. They're making us unsafe. This idea that our real problem, the problem that we have in this country with stagnant wages, with huge budget deficits, with any problem that's going on with crime, with anything, is the result of Mexicans and Guatemalans and Hondurans, is exactly, I'm sorry, I know, but it is exactly the way 1930s Germany demonized Jewish people.
Well, and that's where I think it's such an important part to at least talk about how dismissive of the Sikh Heil thing
Yes.
is important with us, because now they're doing the fascistic stuff, right?
Right.
We have the brown shirts and the Hitler Youth now.
Yeah, the deportation has already started.
Yeah.
And now they want to start putting people into Guantanamo Bay.
Right. Well, and we didn't even talk about I forgot about this. We forgot about the Colombia thing. I don't know if you saw that, where they sent a whole plane of migrants to
a
Colombia.
military plane.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem was. Don't have obvious military aircraft, don't have them in handcuffs. But yes, that did cause a bit of an incident. Otherwise, it's not like anybody cares.
Well, it's also the fact that we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for that one plane.
Yes.
That had 80 people on it.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about this, that even in the most efficient manner you could possibly do, this is going to cost trillions of dollars.
Yes.
And it's going to destroy our economy on top of it.
Well, and I mean, we didn't include it because it hasn't really happened yet, but like today is the day that Trump's going to sign in all the other tariffs too.
Right.
So our economy
all the
is
people that
screwed.
that voted for Donald Trump because you were worried about high retail prices.
Get ready.
Yeah, you're
Gas is going up like crazy.
Yeah.
Retail prices are going up crazy. Eggs are going to continue to go up like crazy.
Well, how much? Like, it's in the middle of winter right now. Where do you think all of our fruits and vegetables are coming from? Mostly Mexico and Central and South America.
Yep.
All of those are, the price is going to go up dramatically.
You telling me that Idaho can't give me bananas?
Yeah. In January and February.
So this may be, I mean, we'll probably cover lots of stuff that Trump has done in the future, but this will probably be our last headlines episode for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we might cover some things that are big news stories.
And may do deep dives on those stories.
The main
but,
topic.
Man, this was a marathon. Like I said, I didn't have fun putting this together. There's just one bad thing after another, and I'm legitimately scared that we have to do this for another 4 years. And I'm viscerally furious that there's plenty of people that we know that are happy that this is happening.
Right. Well, I mean, just the idea, again, that the reason why the American dream is out of reach for most people in the country and not anywhere near where it used to be for our parents and grandparents is not the $1 trillion in wealth that was in the front row during Trump's inauguration. It's because of migrants that have nothing. They're the problem, not Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and their ilk that are hoarding wealth like they're motherfucking dragons. No, it's the migrants that are coming here because they're being murdered in their home countries and terrorized by drug cartels, who, by the way, are shipping all of their drugs into the United States, and all of the guns and ammunition and everything that they're getting are coming from the U.S. It's those migrants' fault. The people that are terrified for their lives and seek refuge in the United States with nothing, they're the problem. They're the reason why your life isn't what you expected. Don't look to the billionaires and this just insane amount of wealth that is being kept at the top and has increased
exponentially.
Right. Ever since Trump was elected president. That's not the issue. It's the migrants, the people with nothing. They're the ones taking it from you. And we need to punish them for it.
It's just welfare queens all over again. That's all. It's just racism and hatred of minority groups. That's all it has ever been. That's all it will ever be. Don't get caught up in the bullshit. And I don't know. I'm much angrier this time around. I can say that for sure. And I'm going to be very angry with people who start spouting some bullshit around me, I think, moving forward, because I just can't do it this time. It's one thing to be like, well, I don't know, let's see what happens, to, no, we exactly knew what was going to happen. They were screaming it from the rooftops, and you happily volunteered to vote for them. I can't do it this time anymore, so, God, okay. We're going to be here next week. We're going to start our Black History Month episodes, and then after next week, we'll be going to every other week. So we'll see you next week, everybody.
Goodbye.
Hey, hang in there.
Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.
Hey,